objectivist. This means that in his particular interpretation of that philosophical thought, he does not like to interfere. He likes to give general ideas. He likes to trust in people, and he likes that the truth represents an honest, objective entity that cannot be questioned. A is A. That is to say, if this is blue, no amount of your stupid liberal whining is going to make it not blue. That's the theory behind that aspect of Randian objectivism. What he did with Wikipedia was put forward a number of very simple credos. Wikipedia will have a neutral point of view. Wikipedia will always cite its sources. Wikipedia will never be an original source of information. And then said, go with it. This worked for a very long time by some standards. It worked for at least a year and a half. That Wikipedia in its early days was able to handle this. It had a certain amount of editors, it had a certain amount of people working on it, and they could all kind of agree, and when they didn't agree, they could work out ways. Now, the problem with these credos is they don't hold up. For instance, neutral point of view. The idea behind a neutral point of view in Wikipedia is that Wikipedia will not take sides. So if you have, for instance, the Hindenburg disaster, there is an entire school of thought, and they are not compatible. Two schools of thought. One school of thought says it's the inside and the outside schools. The inside school says that the gas inside the Hindenburg ignited and the Hindenburg blew up. The outside school says that the covering on the outside of the Hindenburg was of a design that wasn't very good and was in fact flammable, and that's why the Hindenburg went up. They are not compatible. There will never be a situation where they go, I could see that. The entire thing was a huge bomb. But Wikipedia, because of its neutral point of view, ideally has to present both of these views. Two conflicting, completely not compatible views that have to share the same essay space with no separation between them except for a vague section header. Oh, and the people who don't believe in the other one get to edit in the same space as the people who, you can imagine what happens. Conflict, constant, unending conflict. Now the Hindenburg disaster, perhaps you can say, okay, these are all fat old white guys, and that's going to be no big problem. But if you end up with one where the actual existence of a country, say Tibet, is under scrutiny, where one says this doesn't exist and the other one says it does, you can imagine how well and how willing these groups are to work together to come up with the neutral point of view. Neutral point of view is also, because of Jimbo's lack of direct influence, something that's used to say, if you put something in Wikipedia that espouses too direct a view, even if it's in the same area as other opposing points of view, that is not neutral enough. In other words, you have cases where people post something that's a fact, and someone goes, that's not a neutral point of view. And the answer is, okay. And this is the thing. The number one question that I get, and the number one question I think a lot of people get if they do any work on Wikipedia is, who the fuck are you? And the reason for that is because there's no limitation. There used to be about 3 divisions on Wikipedia. It used to be basically editor, developer, Jimbo. Now there's about 6. So there's unwashed anonymous person, editor, admin, developer, Danny, Jimbo. And bureaucrat. So these small stratifications have occurred over time. Most of them were based off of the ability and privilege of affecting certain bits of Wikipedia. Within a very short time, Wikipedia needed the ability to protect pages. There were simply some pages that were just untenable. They could not exist without having somebody protect them. Now, protection is against the idea of Wikipedia. It's the place that anybody can edit, anything you can edit. But realism sets in. However, Jimbo refuses to pull that in. Wikipedia ran into several problems. First of all, it had to start adding users. In the initial phase of Wikipedia, you didn't have users. You just had an IP. Well, that got to be a little bit wacky. So they started to add users. When you add users, you add identity. When you add identity, you start to add politics, because identities have to keep up their own space. This became one of the largest fights within Wikipedia, an amazing fight. As somebody who has been watching Wikipedia from the outside, you start to really kind of enjoy the fights because they are so deep, so involved. In fact, one of the big fears Wikipedia had, or Jimbo had, in the guise of Wikipedia, was becoming Usenet. This was something that he would say in a lot of 2002 era interviews was, I don't want to become another Usenet. Now, that's not possible because in Usenet, at least, you couldn't edit other people's articles. Now you can. So it's actually the worst aspect of Usenet. Also, Usenet was distributed. You could have Usenet in different places. Because Wikipedia is in a centralized location, you still have this central control. Wikipedia has 3 events in the past year and a half that has totally changed the atmosphere of Wikipedia. That is the Ninja, the sex offender, and the publisher. The Ninja is named Ashita Kim. He's from Florida. He believes very much in his martial arts skills. He's written a book called Secrets of the Ninja, sold by Paladin Press. He didn't like Paladin Press. He tried to sue them to stop publishing his book. They didn't, so he started to threaten them. He had another case where he was done wrong, started to threaten them. You can imagine how much Ashita Kim loved finding an article about him written in Wikipedia, which listed his real name, which listed information about him, and which criticized his martial arts techniques. There is a group that is basically they're against what they call belt factories. That is to say, martial arts places that produce a lot of belts so that you get a lot of different spaces. Basically, they paint themselves as kind of like a consumers union of dojos. However, they kind of run their own dojo. So there's kind of some question about what they are, right? Well, one thing is for sure, Ashita Kim wants them to die. On more than one occasion, he has written to them to say, you will be killed by ninjas within weeks. You can imagine how much Wikipedia delighted Ashita Kim when it starts to publish his real name. Ashita Kim knew immediately what to do. Go for the family. The first thing he did was figure out Jimbo's social security number, where he lived, the name of his daughter, where his daughter went to school, who he married, who his family members were located at. He then proceeded to put them into Wikipedia. As fast as he could, he put them into the edit summary. So when you edit something, you say what you were doing, put in his social security number. There was no way to remove edit summaries. So even though they could undo the work and they could add this feature, which Jimbo had added for Ashita Kim's attacks, to delete things wholly and totally from the Wikipedia database, he couldn't get rid of the edit summaries. This actually took them a few weeks to figure out how to program it to remove edit summaries. It still causes them a huge amount of problem in the code to remove an edit summary, remove the history, and still maintain the basic aspect, because he pissed off Ashita Kim. There's another guy, his name is Brian Peppers. Brian Peppers is an ugly motherfucker. He was in the sex offender database in Ohio, and because of a condition he had with his skull, his eyes bug out. He is just an ugly bastard. To see him, your initial thought is, this must be a doll. Nobody can be walking around like this. He was in some sort of a home, this is what's believed, he was in some sort of a home, and he inappropriately touched a nurse, so they kind of hauled him down, and it's not clear whether or not he was finally convicted, but he definitely was entered into the sex offender database. So, it is possible to go to this place and view a picture of Brian Peppers. An entry was put into Wikipedia about Brian Peppers. Here's Brian Peppers, he was a sex offender, and so people started to say, this man is not notable. Not notable is the cancer of Wikipedia. Again, something to keep track of in the future. Because in Wikipedia, there are things that are given to them as rules, but no way to really codify what exactly those rules are. That is to say, there really is no final word except for Jimbo. Jimbo wanted something where the people worked it by themselves. And in doing so, and he has said this on several occasions, he didn't want any politics. What Wikipedia has taught us now is that in a vacuum of politics, politics will be created. There is no vacuum of politics. People who are encountering a space where they cannot lord over others for technicalities and gain power for themselves will then proceed to invoke technicalities, take power from other people. They just do this. This is what human beings do. So with the Brian Peppers article, this was entered and people said not notable. Not notable says, if something is not of great import, then it probably doesn't belong in Wikipedia. For instance, the idea being that, say we were to do Wikipedia entries on every street in Ohio with a short description of what stores were on every street in Ohio. The theory is Wikipedia could not possibly carry all that and still make sense, and so on. This gives the rise to the two schools, inclusionist, deletionist. It is glorious that this has come out now in 2006 instead of 2020. The inclusionist versus deletionist debate is as firm and strong as the abortion debate, gun control debate, or death penalty debate. Inclusionism says Wikipedia, because it is a virtual encyclopedia, is capable of carrying the sum of human knowledge, coincidentally the theme of Wikipedia. Because of the fact that you can sort things and you can work things out, you're able to actually keep the sum of all human knowledge on a place, keep it changed, and use the power of the computer. Fuck yeah! The deletionists take the attitude of Wikipedia is not a junkyard, an area for the cruft of all aspects of humanity that ever existed, turning into an untenable Katamari Damacy-like ball of shit that rolls through the internet. We should clean up stuff that is not important, not interesting, and we should just get that shit out of there. Who cares about what the names of every character in Serenity is? Who cares? So the idea is delete that. Wikipedia had a function built into it allowing people to reach a consensus to delete articles. They gave this to almost everybody. Ultimately, only an administrator can delete it, but it is possible for any fucker in the place to come up to an article and go, "You are not worthy. I present this to the Wikipedia community to be deleted." The Wikipedia people then vote. Does the majority win? No. Many times Wikipedia works off of a consensus policy. Consensus essentially means when the administrator shows up, he makes a decision based on the voices of what people have said. This is how houses are destroyed using eminent domain. You have everybody say this is a bad idea, and then the guy sitting in the seat goes, but man, they're giving us some cash. And that's the end of that house. In Wikipedia, you will have 75 to 45 votes in which the 45 win, simply because of the quality or because of the number of neutrals. You have this enormous amount of weight that can be pushed around by an administrator. It is also possible to vote for the adding and deletion of administrators. And in what I consider to be insane, there is something called the miscellany for delete. And what this means is you can actually reach a consensus on what other people in Wikipedia are allowed to do. All of this shouldn't be surprising in the case that there was a politic vacuum. The fact that people allowed to kind of reach a consensus on everything started saying, well, I can do this. So the notability debate becomes an issue. If I love manga and I think that, manga is just the thing that drives my blood, and then you know that there was once something that had the word neon in it, and it was made in Japan, you don't care about manga. You don't even know what manga is. Anything I write about manga, no matter whether it was the best-selling manga in the world or whether it wasn't the best-selling or whether it was a new area in manga, you don't care. That is not notable. Unnotable. Or, I just looked this up on Google. It got 100 hits. That is not notable. This got 2,000 hits. It's not notable. Who cares about, and these are all actual arguments I've encountered, who cares about this particular country's political structure? Who cares about this particular computer's architecture? Who cares about this range of kings? Just say that they were all in one place. You don't have to give one entry on every king. So what ends up happening is you once again say, who the fuck are you? And the answer is, you're just somebody. You're just some random guy on the street. The most frustrating part about Wikipedia is the fact that when you make a change, somebody who wants to undo that change is just some guy. Jimbo holds this up as, the great aspect of Wikipedia is that everybody gets to get their hands in it and we're all working together. But they don't realize we kill each other. We kill each other every day over shit, over Nintendo games, over the fact that somebody parked in the wrong space. We do this. We're human beings. Wikipedia holds up the dark mirror of what humanity is to itself. And it's interesting because the fact that it is an online experience, you're able to see this. And this is why I say it's important. You can learn how people interact in a relatively bloodless way. We don't have a case that people are generally killed by Wikipedia. I don't think too many people use Wikipedia for their medical information yet. But you never know. You never know where that's going to happen next. So with the notability debate, this was applied to Brian Peppers. Who cares? He's just ugly. That's not notable. He's just some sex offender. People are only putting him on here because he's an ugly motherfucker. well, screw you. Brian Peppers is seen everywhere. There's a You're the Man Now dog entry about him. He's actually mentioned on Slashdot. He's been linked from everywhere. The GNA uses him in their spamming. You know, he's a very important person. So people sit there